Okay people, the purpose of this video is to save you money. You all know that owning a pool is quite expensive, be it paying for a pool guy or paying for things like chemicals and equipment. So I'm going to cover the different elements that we can do to save you some money through the year. So if we want to get rid of the pool guy, which could be €700–800 a year, we're going to have to learn about the different things, cleaning the pool and balancing the pool chemistry. So let's start off with the pool chemistry. Here are the items that we're going to need, or what I use. We're going to use chlorine tablets. Now be careful when you buy these. Do not buy a cheap chlorine tablet, and I'll explain why when I cover the chemicals. Then we're going to need a granulated form of chlorine that will instantly get our chlorine levels up. Then an alkaline increaser, pH plus. Now you also may need some pH minus. I never use pH minus. You will only need pH minus if you mess up your pH plus, but if you're careful with your pH plus, that shouldn't be a problem. And then just a desirable one, you don't have to have, you could have a flocculant and also an algicide. However, I don't tend to use these quite so often, just occasionally, because my tablet has those effects built into them. The next thing we need is a testing kit. You've probably seen this type of testing kit with the two liquids. That's okay for just a basic check, but we need more information than what is supplied on here. So what I suggest is you get some of these testing kits, which is a 6-in-1. Okay, I'm just going to take the camera and I'll go down what each of the settings means. So if we look here, when we're testing, we get the total chlorine. That's an interesting figure for us, but not as interesting as some of the other figures. That's telling you the amount of chlorine that is in the pool. But the next one is free chlorine. That is the one that's important to us. That is showing the amount of chlorine that is available for sanitizing purposes. And as you can see, it clearly tells you what range a pool should be in. Yeah, so there you can see in that range the pool is okay. Next one is pH. And again, it gives us a range, 7.4, 7.6. You'll remember from your chemistry lessons that pH stands for the potential of hydrogen or power of hydrogen. But in a nutshell, it's just the acidity or alkalinity of the pool. And our pool wants to be in the 7.4 to 7.6 range, so slightly alkaline. The next one here is total alkalinity. Now, this is an important one that a lot of pool people forget, and it's not used a lot in Portugal. These two, the pH and the total alkalinity, are intrinsically linked. But in Portugal, the water is quite acidic. So what you want to do is balance this total alkalinity first, get it into the 80 to 120 range, only then move on to the pH, because changing this will move the pH and correct the pH to some degree. And you may find if you correct this, the pH corrects itself. If you don't correct this, you can get your pH into an acceptable range, but it will tend to fluctuate quite quickly, so it'll make your life more of a pain. You'll be putting pH in all the time. So let's move on down. Ceramic acid. This is something that's useful to us, but also a real pain in the butt. The problem is with chlorine is UV light destroys chlorine. So if you put on a sunny day a good amount of chlorine into your pool, the sun will totally destroy it. But ceramic acid stabilizes chlorine, so it will actually, withstand a certain amount of UV. But the problem is, if your ceramic acid gets too high, it also reduces the sanitizing effects of chlorine. Now, why I say it's a pain is it's very easy to increase ceramic acid, but it's almost impossible to reduce it. Now, the only way to reduce it is by emptying the pool, or, not all of the pool, but, removing some water and just adding some more water. The problem is if it gets, up into this range, your chlorine, no matter how much you have, it will virtually be doing nothing. So, You need to keep it in this range. Now, this is where I say about the cheap chlorine tablets. All chlorine tablets have something called softeners, and that is actually effectively ceranic acid. So it will gradually increase your ceranic acid. If you buy cheap ones, they are loaded with the stuff, so you'll end up in this range if you use them regular. And this is why I suggest using some good quality ones. CTX is pretty good. It has a real low softener ratio. Okay, so there we go. The total hardness I'm not so concerned about. So get a pack of these. They cost less than €4. I order mine straight from AliExpress, less than €4, and you get 50 tests in each one. Okay, so let's go across the chemicals and why we need them. So we've got the tablets, and I've got a 10 effect tablets here, and you can get, you can look in what the effects are, but it will have things like an algicide and a flocculant and softeners and different things like that. And what I do is these are slow release, so once you've got your pool in balance, you can put a couple of these in a floating device on your pool, and they will keep your pool nicely sanitized with very little effort. However, we also need something called Chlor Shock, which is effectively powdered chlorine. This works far more quickly. So if the chlorine drops quite a lot, we can chuck this in, and we can have the chlorine up to level in 30 minutes or so. But also we will use this for shocking the pool, and I'll mention what shocking the pool is in a moment. Now, I said that we needed to balance that alkalinity. Yeah, for this we need the alkalinity increaser. So we use this product, we check our alkaline level, we put this in, we get that balance first. Once that is balanced, we check the pH. Hopefully that should be balanced at this point. If not, we move on to a pH plus or a pH minus to bring that into balance. Then we move on to our various chlorines. So if we were doing a pool for the first time, we would use the instant effect chlorine, and then after that we'd be using the tablets. And then if you're in the summer and you want a really sparkly clean pool, you can use this flocculant, which will really clear out the water. So I'm just going to pause this video and restart, and then I will show you how I will test. I've not tested my pool for about a week now, so I'll just do a test and show you how I would go about balancing the pool. Okay, so we're going to test the pool. It's just a case of just putting it in the water for 2 seconds, and then we must wait for 15 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And if we look way down at this total alkalinity, you can see that's well perfect. It's well in that range, in the OK range. If we look at the pH, again, it's perfectly in the OK. And if we look here, the chlorine is perfectly on the top end of the pool OK there. So I've got nothing to do, even though I've not touched the pool for a week, it's perfectly in balance. So you can see what I say is, it doesn't take a lot of effort. The job would be done now. I've checked, I'm happy, I can leave it.
So to recap, to balance your water, you want to start with the total alkalinity, get that set to 80 to 120, remembering any chemical you add to fix the alkalinity will also affect the pH. So wait for the alkalinity to settle at that range, and then move on to the pH. Your pH may be okay at this stage, but if not, just set that to 7.4 to 7.6. Then once you're happy, you can then move on to the chlorine and set your chlorine to the range I've set there, 2 to 6.6. But it will be clearly marked on the sticks, the OK range that you need to be setting.
Now, if it was a case that we did need to make some changes to the pool chemistry, you're going to need a bucket, a measuring device to measure the appropriate amount of chemical that you're going to put in, and a whisk. So if we assume that the pH was a little bit low, you'd look on the instructions on your back of the box, and it will tell you how much pH plus you need per 100 cubic meters of water to raise it by 0.2 on the scale, and you would just scale that back to match the size of the pool that you have and the amount you want to raise the pH. Now you will see on a lot of instructions they will say put the chemical in the skimmer basket. Do not do that. It's not so bad on some of the chemicals, but particularly on things like chlorine. You're putting high intensity chlorine right through your pump and all your fittings. Obviously that's not a good thing, so ignore those instructions. What you want to do is put them in a bucket, dip your bucket in the pool water, just get it full, and then just mix it thoroughly so you've got a good mix, and then just throw it all over the top of the pool. Then you'll get a good distribution through the pool. Then obviously your pump will distribute that through the day. Okay, so that is how to sort out the pool chemistry. Now you've probably heard about shocking the pool. It seemed like some mystical thing. There's nothing special about shocking the pool. All that shocking the pool means is you're increasing the chlorine to a really high level. Yeah, you wouldn't swim in the pool at this high level. The only time you really need to shock the pool is, say, at the end of winter, you open it up, you might want to do a shock at the beginning of the season. And then also, if during the year you have a lot of people in your pool, when they leave, you might want to do a shock overnight, just to, give the boost, sanitize whatever they've done, all of the oils and things in the pool. So you'll see these types of things, shock rapid. Yeah, they're quite expensive, so it's up to you. You can use those, they're just really concentrated. But all you've got to do is use a sufficient amount of something like this chlor shock or any normal chlorine, and that will do your shocking of your pool. Now, don't be confused by the smell of your pool. Some people think, oh, my pool doesn't smell. If you came to my pool, you can't smell any chlorine, or if you can, it's incredibly slight. You'll probably remember that smell when you used to go swimming at the swimming baths, where it smelled really clean, that really chlorine-y clean smell, and you think, oh, that's good. It's not good. That is the smell of urine. What happens is chlorine breaks down urine and turns it into chloramines, and those are the things that smell. So if your pool smells quite nice and fresh, it's actually mean that someone has peed in the pool. So that's a good bit of information for you. Okay, the next item is a pool cover. This is going to save us a ton of money, but also have the benefit of raising your pool temperature. I'm just using a relatively cheap bubble cover here. These are what I recommend. They're quite easy to apply. Not only will this increase your temperature of your pool, I had my pool up to about 33 degrees this year with the pool cover, but it will also reduce the amount of debris that falls on your pool, so your cleaning will be a lot easier. But it also reduces evaporation of the water by 97%, so you'll be paying less money on water, having to refill the pool. But also, in that percentage, 97% that's been evaporated, is all your chemicals that you're paying a lot of money for. If you can reduce that evaporation, you'll use a lot less chemicals. So it's definitely a worthwhile investment. When you see online about pool covers, these bubble covers, they'll say, oh, not to be used in the winter. You've got to remember they're referring to countries that the winters are really cold. Here, as you can see, it's a bright sunny day here. So I actually leave this pool cover on in the winter also, so my water stays nice and clean. My chemicals are not being evaporated. And all I do is, once every couple of weeks, I'll remove the cover for a day and then, put it back on again. Okay, so we've sorted out the pool chemistry, but we still need to clean the pool. So some of the items you will need. We'll need this to just skim anything that is on the top of the pool. A brush, to brush the sides and the bottom of the pool. What happens then is you will brush up any debris, and that will get sucked through the system and into the pool filter. Yeah, that's not a perfect situation. So we've already saved you the money on your pool guy, and what I suggest you do is buy a pool robot. Now you'll see two types of pool robots. Ones that connect to your pool pump. And what they do, they use the suction of your pump, which means your pool pump must be switched on for it to work. But anything it sucks up will get pushed into your filter. They're also a royal pain to use. They've got big pipes on them, so just don't bother. All you're doing is contaminating your filter, so you'll need your filter replaced much more often. Get one of these, an electric low voltage pool pump. Anything that it catches, you just remove at the end, and it's just a case of once a week or whenever, if you had a lot of people or there's been a lot of stuff on the bottom of your pool, just drop this in the pool. It'll sink to the bottom. Now, I think I spent about €500 on this. You can get more expensive ones that will also go up the sides of the pool. This one just goes slightly up the sides, but to be honest, not much gets put on the sides of the pool, so it's entirely your decision. And then once you're happy, you just click start, and then go and have a cup of tea, do what you want to do, and come back later, and the job is done. So here you can see where the pull up was finished. It's just a case of removing this, and you can see all of this gunk that would have been going into your filter and rotting away in your filter, but here it's all captured. You just clean this and it's ready for the next time. So now let's talk about water turnover. Yeah, as we know, if you leave water not moving for a certain length of time, you'll get algae growth and the water will turn green. So this is the whole reason of the pool pump and the pool filter. So effectively what happens in a pool, you have a suction side and a positive pressure side, and the suction side effectively is anything before the pump. So what happens is we have skimmers, so the idea is that water flows across the top and hopefully takes a lot of the floating things off the surface of the pool down into the filter. But you also have an outlet on the bottom, so then they both flow down, then it gets pumped through the filter, and the filter captures any of the debris. Now, you want to be setting your pool pump to be turning over your water by a minimum of 1 time per day. During the summer I tend to have mine set to 2, and I'll cover why I do that, because it's quite cheap for me to do that. So that will help you keep your pool nice and clean. So the way you calculate that, you look at your pump specifications, and it will tell you how many litres per hour it pumps, and you will just do the calculation of how long you have to run that. And you'll probably find that the majority of pools in Portugal are a single speed pump. To be honest, in a lot of countries, because that's all there was at one time. In some countries now, it's even illegal to fit a new pool with a single speed pump, because they cost an absolute fortune to run. I would estimate your pump, if you check the spec, it will be either 500 watts, a kilowatt, or 1.5 kilowatts. So you imagine every hour that you're running, if you've got a 1 kilowatt pump, that's costing a lot. And you're probably running it maybe 4 or 5 hours per day. Now, there's a new technology, called variable speed pumps. They're quite a bit more expensive, but I guarantee you'll make your money back. Now, the reason is a variable speed pump, you can make it pump really slowly, and it's much harder to pump water through the pipework at a fast speed. So when you pump it slowly, it becomes more efficient. So whereas you may have a kilowatt per hour, my pool pump is running at about 30 watts. So you can imagine the saving there. The difference is I run my pool pump during the winter maybe 7 hours instead of that 4 or 5 hours, and in the summer I run it for 11 hours. So it's running for a lot longer. So that's actually a good thing, because you get a good, constant turnover. But it's obviously costing a lot less. So If I was you, invest in a variable speed pump. Another thing that you need to know about pool maintenance is your filter. Okay, so you can see my filter here. It usually contains either sand or glass. If ever you have your filter refilled, go for the glass, don't go for the sand. Okay, it lasts much longer. Now, one thing you've probably heard of is backwashing. Now, if you read the internet, you'll see, people backwash, once a week and things like that. It's completely unnecessary. All you're doing is when you're backwashing, you're wasting a ton of water because all of the water that you're using for the backwash is going down into your drain. So what's backwash do is, as the pump is pumping water through this filter, anything that's captured gets captured in this sand or glass and stays there. That's not a problem. But over time, you'll see a pressure gauge on your pump, and because of this, the pressure will start to increase. Now, you can monitor that if you want. I don't bother. But the idea is, eventually, you will want to get some of that crap out. So what you do, you must switch your pool pump off. So you power the pool pump off. You'll also notice how quiet my pool pump is here. It's only running at 800 RPM. You'll switch your pool pump off. Now, read your instructions, but generally, you will have a backwash setting on here. You will turn that to backwash. You will open your drain, and then you will turn your pump on, and that will start pumping, as you would expect, in the reverse direction. So all of the crap that has been building up in that filter will get pushed down the drain. Then what you do, you turn your pool pump off again, and you move this to rinse. And again, you turn the pool pump off, and it will actually push some water through the sand, and it will give it will clean your sand filter. Both of those steps you want to run for 2 to 4 minutes. Okay, so that's the backwash and the rinse. And I do this, during the winter, maybe once every couple of months. During the summer, maybe once a month. Or if just occasionally, if you had a load of crap on the pool, loads of leaves have been sucked in, and you think, well, okay, I'll do a backwash. But remember, you're going to be throwing a chunk of water away to achieve that backwash. So, on our quest for reducing money, another waste of money in pools is these pool lights. Most of these are halogen bulbs, and they run at about 500 watts a piece. So you imagine if I'm swimming in the evening for say 2 hours, I'm going to use 2 kilowatt hours of electricity. What I suggest you do is order some of these LED pool lights. Not only the advantage of saving you a ton of electricity, they're also remote control, so they come with a little controller. You can change the colour, you can have disco lights flashing on them, if that's your sort of thing. But the big thing is, the one I've got here, I've got the maximum wattage LED. It is 72 watts. Now, you can imagine the saving there compared to the 500 watts of a standard pool light. So it won't take you long to recover. I bought this from AliExpress, about €40.
So that was just a quick run through of pool maintenance. If you've got any questions or you want me to go into more detail, just contact me and I will help you where I can.